Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today we're going to be talking about Expend4bles. And yes, I know it's Expendables 4, but the title shows me Expend4bles, so that's what I'm going to call it. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons, so let's get to it. Pros. This is the fourth Expendables movie, obviously. This series started all the way back in 2010, and the whole gimmick of the movie, of the whole series, really, the whole selling point is that you have all these action stars all coming together to kick ass, shoot people off, and be cool. And and the whole thing was basically just like a love letter to 80s action fans everywhere. And those fans, were interested, and they showed up to watch the movie because the first Expendables did quite well for itself. Up with 34.8 million, made over 100 million domestic, 268 million worldwide on a budget of 82 million. That is quite good, especially since it was like an August movie, because obviously August is like it's considered like the other month of summer. It's all about May, June, July, and August is just there. So for August standards, this did great. So yeah, and besides, I mentioned like the cast here. You had Stallone, Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, Randy Couture. Even though he's not really an action star, he's mainly known for UFC stuff. Steve Austin, Terry Crews, and Mickey Rourke. Pretty solid cast. Not to mention like pretty sure Bruce Willis was in this. I think there was a cameo from Arnold too. But yeah, the cast, premise, fans showed up. So naturally, you make a sequel. And 2 years later, we got that sequel in 2012, Expendables 2. And the cast here is even more goated than the first movie because now you have Arnold and Bruce Willis like in more prominently featured. Not to mention you have John Claude Van Damme and you got Chuck Norris. I mean, can't get much better than that. Oh yeah, and Liam Hemsworth is in here for some reason. So so this one it didn't do quite as well as the first one did. Domestically, it only opened with like 28 million, made 85 million domestic, but worldwide it did a lot better. Did better internationally, made over 300 million on a budget of 100 million. So I'd call that a hit. I call that a success. So yeah, the first two movies were hits. They made money. You're probably wondering, well, Malik, why aren't you talking about Expendables 3? Oh, I will talk about Expendables 3 when we get to the cons, because there's quite a bit to discuss regarding that thing. Okay. So I'm saving that for later. But yeah, the first two movies were hits. So I'm labeling those as a pro. So second pro is the cast. Even though the cast here is a lot weaker than the first three movies, there's still recognizable names. I mean, here you got like the usual suspects: Statham, Stallone, Lundgren, and Couture. I don't know how to say his name. We also have like new faces here. You got Megan Fox, who's mostly known for the Transformer movies, the Bay Turtle movies. um, what else? Jennifer's Body, which has become a cult classic, and her very weird relationship with Machine Gun Kelly. And you also got 50 Cent. Everyone knows who he is. I mean, the dude's built up a friggin' empire, has like his whole power franchise on TV. So everyone knows who he is. Then you got, let's see, Tony Jaa. Tony Jaa. Where have I heard of him before? Uh, what has he done? It's been quite a few action movies here. I guess the American ones being like Furious 7, Triple X Return of Xander Cage, and the Monster Hunter movie that I'm pretty sure you all forgot existed, including me. So Yeah. I think Onk Bak. I don't know how to say these names. I'm just gonna look up his name like off screen. But yeah, like I guess dude definitely has like fans. I imagine he does have fans. And then like right under him, you got oh, God, these names, man. IQ, Iko Uways. I'm so sorry. I'm butchering these names so bad. But this dude, I was just looking him up just for like the video because I was like, this dude. It was him or Jaw that was in like the Raid movies, but it was this guy, Uways. He was in like the Raid 1 and 2. Those considered like modern action classics. You know, those have a huge following. So yeah, so you got him, and you got Andy Garcia for some reason. But yeah, the cast here, I mean, I always say it's better to have recognizable faces than complete nobodies. So yeah, I'd say that the cast I would label them as a pro, at least to some extent a pro. And then another pro is the fact that there's no real direct competition out there. Definitely not right now. I mean, I guess there's the creator, but that's next weekend. And then there won't be any action movies until God. I don't know. And maybe early late October, early November, I'm not sure. But it'll be a while before we get another action movie out there besides the creator, but that's more sci-fi. So, yeah, lack of direct competition, I'm labeling that as a pro. And that is it. So, cons. Expendables 3. Let's go back to that. Okay. So, Expendables 1, 2, both hits. Okay, we're on a good pace. Things are going well. Then Expendables 3 happened and then everything went wrong. So Expendables 3. So with this one, the cast got even bigger, if you can believe it. I mean, you had names like Mel Gibson, Harrison Ford, Wesley Snipes, Antonio Banderas. You got some good names in here. And not to mention like some new, like fresher faces, you know, young people. The biggest being Ronda Rousey. This was back when she was, relevant. But like I believe the height of her UFC career. So yeah, you think Expendables 3 would maybe have a slight dip in like box office, but still do all right. That's not what happened at all. This movie tanked hard. It opened with like 15 million, made like 39 million domestic, 200 million worldwide on a budget of 100 million. That's terrible, especially its domestic numbers. That is damn abysmal. And there are reasons for why this happened. The first reason is, I guess one could say, franchise fatigue, because like when you do a gimmick, like you most gimmicks you can do once, some you can do twice. By the third time, it's starting to get old. Like it's just the novelty is worn off. Like it's no longer fresh. It's no longer like um you know it just it doesn't hit the same way as it used to. It's kind of like a third movie curse. Lots of series go through this problem where the third movie is just like the worst one. And Expendables 3 was no exception. So, yeah, this being the third movie, doing like the same thing again, more or less, like that hurt it a bit. Then there's also the fact the PG-13 rating. Okay, so the first two Expendables, they were R rated, right? Hard R action movies, just the way 80s action fans want them. And they loved them for that. You know, they were unapologetically rated R. This took a different approach, though. In order to gain a wider audience, they decided to, make it PG-13, because PG-13, you can have like teens and kids watch the movie, right? So you open up a whole new market. But here's the problem: teens and kids don't give a shit about these movies. They were never going to give a shit about these movies. They were never made for them. They were always made for the older male demographic. And so that demographic, when they found out about the rating change, they were pissed because basically Expendables felt like the series got neutered because of this. Like it was just a bad decision that helped no one. Even Sylvester Stallone later admitted like that was a huge mistake, the PG-13 rating, because all it did was just turn off fans, it just alienated them. So that PG-13 rating is like another reason why it failed, but it's also the another thing. The movie got leaked in its entirety online weeks before it came out. So obviously that was going to have a negative effect. Although I can't imagine that effect was huge because like X-Men Origins Wolverine, that famously got like leaked online like a month in advance. It wasn't it wasn't 100% finished, but it was more or less finished. That leaked well in advance, but people still watched it in theaters. Unfortunately, that still made money. So I don't think piracy was like the big reason why it tanked, but it is a reason. So yeah, Expendables 3 really shot itself in the foot and the stomach and the neck with all of these decisions, which is like the worst decisions. And one would think this would have been the end of the series, like a franchise killer, like no doubt. And when for years I've heard about Expendables 4, I thought it would just be one of those projects that just gets talked about but never actually gets made. But then it actually got made, and here we are, it's actually releasing. So it's kind of weird this even exists at all. But um but yeah, Expendables 3 killed the franchise. It really did for a while. It seems like that was the death of the Expendables. So you gotta deal with Expendables 3. You gotta deal with that baggage. So yeah, Expendables 3, that whole movie's a con for Expend4bles. It's very much what Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny had to deal with after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's the same thing. Gotta deal with bad movie baggage, pretty much. So that's con number one. Con number two, the reviews for this movie, oof, they are no good. 16%. And sure, the first three Expendables movies, they didn't score the highest, but they were way better received than Expend4bles. Like 16% is abysmal. There's no way you can label that as a positive. There's not even an audience score, which is a really damning sign. But we do have a cinema score, and it's a B minus, which means word of mouth is toxic. Okay, a movie like this should never get a B minus. Like with the Expendables movies, looking looking at their cinema scores, first one got a B plus, and then 2 and 3 got A minuses. I'm not sure how 3 managed to get that, but yeah, those cinema scores are way higher than a B minus. A B minus means word of mouth is bad. It is no good. It is rotten. So yeah, so reviews are abysmal, and the cinema score is terrible too for the genre. So that's a big old con. Another con is that there's been advertising for this movie, but I haven't seen much of it. I don't think they're pushing it like as hard as they should. I don't know. I don't know. I guess they're like they tried, but it's just not hitting. Apparently, like I haven't seen any trailers for this movie, like none at all. And from people who have seen the trailers, it's like, bro, this movie looks rough. Like they're not saying positive things about it. I was like, oh no, that's not a good sign. So yeah, just lack of a big marketing effort. Gonna label that as a con. And another con is the 9 year gap between Expendables 3 and 4. Expendables 3 came out in 2014. Do you realize how long ago that was? Do you realize how much has changed in the world since Expendables 3? Like, it's crazy. Absolutely bonkers. And, with sequels, ideally it needs to be 2 to 3 years. Maybe 4 if you're really lucky. But 2 to 3 years is the ideal gap between franchise installments. Maybe less than 2 years, like a year or so, if you can. But you got to make sure the series is still in the public consciousness, because if you wait too long, people are going to move on and forget all about it, and that's what has happened here. The fact that target audience that was there for Expendables 1, 2, they're gone. They moved on to other things, like John Wick. Pretty sure they all gravitated towards that. And hilariously, John Wick came out the same year as Expendables 3. And now John Wick is now the new big action franchise. That just had its fourth entry this year, and it was the biggest of the whole series. Like, John Wick has become a big franchise. So yeah, all the action fans gravitate towards that. Not to mention the Extraction movies with Chris Hemsworth on Netflix. I imagine that audience, you know, would gravitate towards those movies too. So it just makes Expend4bles. It just feels like, why? Why are you here? Nobody wants you anymore. I know that's kind of a mean thing to say, but like, it's true. Like, no one was really demanding an Expendables 4 to exist. Okay? No one was really begging Hollywood to make Expend4bles. No one really wanted it, but we got it, and it's just there. I already knew there was red flags around this movie because there was like no hype. I felt nothing from going into it. I just felt like no buzz, no energy, and that was a sign this movie's gonna this movie's gonna be a disaster, isn't it? So yeah, the 9 year gap and the fact that the target audience has moved on to other things, that's a huge problem. So that's a con. I guess another con I can mention is the fact that, like, the cast, while they're recognizable, it doesn't mean they have strong drawing power. Statham and Stallone, I mean, they've had hits, but they've had quite a few bombs too. Like, they're not immune to failure. And then Megan Fox, like, her main claim to fame is being is just being in like the first two Transformers movies as eye candy, and then being eye candy again in the Bay Turtle movies, this time portraying April O'Neil, and then again her very weird relationship with Machine Gun Kelly. Like, she's not exactly a draw. And then 50 Cent, like, sure, everyone knows who he is, but no one really cares that he's in this movie. Like, if this movie came out like in the mid 2010s, if this came out like in 2016 or something, then people would care a lot more. But it's 2023. Okay, nobody cares. So, yeah, just the fact that the cast, even though it's recognizable, the cast is just so much weaker than the first three movies. It's laughable. So, yeah. So I guess the cast is more of a mixed bag. They're recognizable, but the whole lineup is hella weak compared to the first three movies. So I guess the fact that the cast is weaker than the first three movies, that's a con. Another con is that next weekend, ooh, you got The Creator, you got Paw Patrol the Mighty Movie, you got Saw X all coming out. And like Dumb Money, well, it's technically wide this weekend, but it will expand further next weekend. You gotta deal with all that. I don't think Expend4bles can really handle that. And then once like the Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie, once that's expected to be a monster hit. Once that once that comes out, this movie's gonna get erased, just wiped from existence. So yeah, so dealing with a bunch of movies coming out in the near future, that's gonna kill this movie. So, and pretty much all the September movies. So that's a con. And I think I mentioned everything. I think I covered like all the main things. Okay, so opening weekend. Well, what can I compare this to? Uh, there's been plenty of like, franchise installments that took like a stupid long time to come out. Bad Boys for Life, that was like a 17-year gap. Live Free or Die Hard, that's actually a great comparison. Because that's a fourth movie, and that took. Shoot, I hit the wrong thing. That took 12 years to come out. There we go. Let me find it. Live Free or Die Hard. But the difference between like that and Expend4bles is that Live Free or Die Hard, people actually wanted to see that movie, and that movie actually became the biggest movie of the franchise, and even more ironically, that movie went PG-13 when the other movies were R, but that PG-13 rating didn't hurt its business at all. I guess it helped that it had like an R-rated cut on DVD. So, yeah, that. And what's even funnier is that the next movie, A Good Day to Die Hard, went back to an R rating, and that killed the franchise. That movie did not do very well, and just basically killed the whole thing. So I mean, that's a comparison. That's the ideal comparison, but there's no way in hell that's happening. And oh, I forgot to mention his Thursday previews, 750K. Oof, that's terrible. Like for comparison's sake, uh, going back to Expendables 3, which came out 9 years ago in summer, that had a Thursday preview of 875K. So the fact that this did way worse than 3, when 3 was already a bomb, is a sign of absolute just catastrophe. That's a sign of just total catastrophe. So yeah. Yeah, Thursday preview is bad, so that's another con. So Live Free or Die Hard is the ideal comparison, but what I really think is going to happen is that this movie is going to pull a Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, which came out in 2014. This thing, Sin City 2, which came out 9 years after the first one. Some really weird coincidences, right? Like, and this came out the same month as Expendables 3. Like, what the hell? It's so weird, all these coincidences. But Sin City: A Dame to Kill For came out 9 years after the first Sin City. First Sin City was a hit. They waited way too long, and then the sequel came out, and it did horrible. Holy shit! It had one of the worst performances I've ever seen for a sequel. Like only opened with like $6 million, made 13.7 million total. For comparison's sake, the first Sin City, if I can look it up, the first Sin City, where are you? That opened with 29 million. So, A Dame to Kill For, its total run was less than half of what the first Sin City made in 3 days. Let that sink in. So, yeah, so judging by, from what I've heard, what I've been seeing from like early box office for Expendables 4, it seems like that's the direction it's going. It's going in the Sin City 2 direction, and that's no good. And hell, it's not even going in like, was it Rambo Last Blood? Yeah, Rambo Last Blood, which came out 2019. That had an 11-year gap between installments. Even that did way better. It up with like 18 million, which is Expend4bles would kill for a number like that. And that, had a Thursday preview of 1.3. So, yeah, everything's going bad for Expend4bles. Like it is not good. So, I think 10 million seems like a stretch. I'm gonna go with the number I've been seeing is like 8 to 10 million. I think I'm gonna go with that too. 8 to 10 million opening weekend, and it's total. I don't see this having long legs at all. I see this having a quick run in theaters. Maybe 20 million, 25 million if it's lucky, which is an absolute disaster. Just an absolute embarrassment for a movie that costs $100 million. And it just makes you think, maybe this is a movie that shouldn't have been made. They should have just left Expendables alone, they should have just let its corpse just sit there, but instead they decided to take the defibrillator and try to resurrect a old rotting corpse. That's what they did, and surprise, surprise, didn't work. So, yeah. So that's Expend4bles. There's one more movie to talk about this weekend. That's It Lives Inside. And then we'll be done for the weekend. I know Dumb Money. I'll talk about that next week. Okay. When it opens wider, I'll have more to talk about when that happens. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. We'll check out more videos like this. Got playlists on the homepage, all previous prediction videos I've made this year. You want to watch any of them from beginning to now, I highly encourage you to do that, so go do it. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I just made 2 episodes today. Today, yesterday, I don't know. 207 and 208. Those are the most recent ones I made. And I talked about Expendables 4. Well, at the time it was Expendables 4. I didn't get the Expend4bles name till later. First time I talked about the movie was episode 158, where it got its September release date. And I talked about it alongside Glass Onion. So, episode 158, that's where I talked about it. So, if you want to watch that, go right ahead. You want to watch any of the cancel episodes, all 208 episodes I've made. You want to binge them all from beginning to now. I highly encourage you to do that. So, go do it. And there's also the box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. September recap will come out about right before, in between Exorcist Believer and Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. In between those two things. So stay tuned for that. And boy, it's going to be fun talking about Expend4bles, because it's been a while since I've talked about a real disaster on this channel. But now I have one again. Yay. So, yeah, so stay tuned for that video. And then next week, I finally do my summer recap, my 3-part summer recap. Non-losers, small losers, and big losers. So stay tuned for those. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made on the channel, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.